Hello and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. We are continuing our wonderful Roman area here for our new theme park. In this episode, we are building in the top left quadrant of the main Roman square here and trying to build a Roman bathhouse, which is something a little bit new and different. So I hope you guys will like this kind of process. It was quite a long one, to say the least, because I'm using two separate buildings and getting them to merge correctly and trying to make this thing look at least halfway decent. It's a lot of stone, because you know bathhouses were a little bit more of a stone only structure, and so basically this whole process took quite a while to do. In fact, all my time working on this, it was go to work, come home, work on this for about 5 or so hours, go to bed, go to work. And so that's where I've been for the past day or so, trying to get this done for you guys in a timely manner so you can enjoy kind of a new episode of Planet Coaster and we can get some good progress done on this new theme park. As you know, the deadline, we only have about a month to finish this whole thing. So this is going to be an actual enterable building. As you can see, we laid out a path and everything. I do like the red path for this choice. To me, it's kind of a reminiscent of maybe some brickwork or something like that. In fact, I would love for them to add an actual like loose brick kind of path in the game by default. I think we need something with a little bit more character, something not quite as perfectly clean as a lot of the other pathing that's around. Something that might look a little weathered. That way the place looks used and actually kind of more traversed than normal. So this bathhouse, you know, obviously we're using fake water. Water is not really in the game yet completely, and it's going to be a rather simple design with no real function. I mean, there's some bathrooms in there for people to like change or to enter the other side buildings. And then it's basically a open pool surrounded and enclosed by kind of a large entryway plus an additional, I guess, attachment buildings that you'll see eventually that we'll lay out. Here, it's pretty much just kind of boxing in the basic shape and trying to get kind of basically the general looks that we want for this whole thing. So that's what we're doing now. Trying to get these paths to line up for the bathroom and trying to get the building kind of in the final position that we want here in the long term. So this video is going to be divided into a couple parts. The first part here is going to be working on the front facade and the main kind of entryway into the bathhouse itself, which is going to be a pretty kind of grand entrance. And it's very reminiscent of, say, the Triumphal Arch in a sense, just a little bit more boxy and have a wider base, but it's essentially using the same methodology here. This is a problem I have with recording Planet Coaster, is the fact that I tend to forget that the day-night cycle is rolling, and I should be pausing the game so you guys can always see, but you know, when you record for multiple hours, you just kind of don't even notice it, that it's going on. Here at some point, eventually I will, and we'll pause the game, but in the meantime, you're just going to have to see a couple of day-night cycles, which will look nice once we have some lights added into the park, but I feel like that's kind of a later step that we're going to hold off on for now. Using the new rotation tools, and then plus also the new kind of translation tools, is very useful for something like this, something with a lot of detail and repetitive features, and we can actually kind of get a lot done relatively quick on certain areas. Though this building does not have a fake facade, it's actually the full building itself, meaning there's a lot more surface for me to cover and add detail onto. So that's why, in my opinion, this one probably took the longest to throw together. It's probably the most, if you probably count how many pieces are in it by itself, it's probably the most detailed building I've ever done in Planet Coaster so far. I would say the Triumphal Arch is probably the most detailed for its size, though. So its size to part ratio is much more dense than the structure here. So this, I'm figuring out that, you know, using the back side of certain blocks and objects, can be very useful to try and change the color of things. And as we said, this is going to be a majorly stone structure here, and not as much plaster shown as, say, the villa to the right. And so it's going to be a lot of sinking other objects into the walls to kind of hide them. This, I didn't want the tiled roof, obviously, but I also didn't want the white kind of stone roof, because I feel like that might have been too repetitive and maybe too similar to the triumphal arch. And so I settled with using the backside of this kind of bronze sandstone little window here, and it has kind of a nice texture to it, so it looks kind of like panels, and we can actually copy and paste it over to the other side to save us as much time as possible. I'm still trying my best, in my opinion, to get used to using copy and paste more, and a little bit more of the module functionality of Planet Coaster, but a lot of the times I forget, and I kind of get into the zone of handcrafting every little tiny detail. So until, you know, I get that kind of straightened out, I think, you know, it's going to be a long build process for me until I get kind of used to using that more often. I'm liking the use of these little kind of square windows as nice kind of horizontal elements on a lot of the wall facades. And then also, I was thinking about leaving the roof tiling exposed on the other side, because I really like that effect, the tiling with the bits of the sandstone and wood showing through. It kind of looks like a webbing of support structures holding up the area. So, you know, I wanted that to work, but in the long run, with the other buildings kind of jutting through, I ended up having to cover up the roof as well. Using the top of that sandstone block here to try and get some type of large cinder block effect at the bottom of this facade. And then we will be throwing in little arches, support columns, just as many little details as possible. Bring in the layers that these things are really known for, and we will be able to hopefully make it look pretty good, you know? So, a little bit of real talk, by the way. It is hot. Like, my apartment right now, I live on the 16th floor, so all the heat in the apartment rises to my room. Normally that's fine, except for my AC's been broken for the past 5 days. And so when I get home from work and I'm sitting here for hours just sweating, it is the worst thing in the world. But hey, you know, suffering on for you guys, trying to get a video out every day. But yeah, right now, I think last night it was 90 degrees in my apartment, so sleeping really sucked. And then going to work in the morning, you know, it kind of kills your motivation. But hopefully we'll have that fixed soon, so I can at least be comfortable in my own apartment, especially for the weekend that's coming up, because that's going to be a lot more Planet Coaster on the way for you guys, as this is definitely going to be the main game on the channel for quite a while. So let's go ahead and continue explaining kind of what's going on. The main bath area, even though in the long term this ends up being more like a pool than a bath, is surrounded, of course, by a courtyard, some nice kind of covered pathways, walkways around it, and then these kind of buildings that are kind of attached to the sides to kind of give an additional layer, some type of detail that wasn't already there before. So I think it ends up looking rather nice. Of course, the joining of the front facade onto the main structure is quite awkward, and so I really have to try and lay out as much of the building as possible before throwing in details. Now, that also slows it down, because what you don't want to do is have to handcraft everything. But due to the nature of the building and how much, I guess, I have to kind of cram the two things together, I didn't know how much I would end up building and then not using anyways. So I figured it might be best to just go ahead, lay out the whole building, and then use as much copy and paste as possible later on. So it does, I do end up really loving this shape. It's a very kind of asymmetrical shape and a little bit dynamic here at the base, and it really shows, I think, kind of just how I love the looks of buildings that look like they were planned, but then also grew over time. And so that's why I kind of like this courtyard surrounded with other buildings attached to it. Because maybe it started out with just the pool itself with the courtyard, and then they realized, well, we need more rooms for maybe some saunas or some cold baths. Maybe they're up in the other areas of the compound, and so they added these additional structures on to kind of give maybe some more relaxation areas, some forums, because in Rome, business was done in around the bathhouse. You know, their towns were laid out around this structure. You know, businesses were built around these structures, and so this was, you know, just a normal everyday place for them to go and you know, converse, socialize, make some deals. You know, so it's like the equivalent of meeting on the golf course for the upper business people nowadays. It's, hey, let's go to the bathhouse and talk business naked. That's how they go about things in Rome. So, you know, can't judge, but you know, when in Rome, it's something you got to do. And a lot of roofing tiles. Now, what I'm going to end up doing, there's going to be a skip here soon, as there was so much time and I was overheating with a whole bunch, just because how hot my apartment is, that I decided to cut out a lot of footage here. Like, you know, it's probably, what would I say? It's about 10 hours of work that went into this building. And so cutting all that down into 20 minutes would have been quite the jarring speed build. And so I ended up doing a skip here soon that, yes, the facade is finished. You guys can kind of see what we're going for. And then it's going to do a skip that we're going to be working on a little bit more interior and finishing touches. And that's just to save time and get this thing, I guess, presented in such a way that you can kind of get the gist of it. You're going to notice the tiles on the roof will change because I don't want to use this tile everywhere. It's too common, but I also didn't want to use the wooden roofing that we did in, say, the Pirates Cove series. And so what I'm going to end up doing is using the backside of a door to get a wooden effect that's different than that large giant sign. And it's a really dark wood. You know, I think it looks really nice in areas. We do leave some tile around, and that's just to bring in some layering and some color changes. But overall, I think the look of the roof here soon will, at least in my opinion, impress you guys. We'll also end up kind of moving the whole building itself and recentering it onto the sidewalk and getting that to a nice point and a little bit more centered onto the plaza itself. I didn't like how the door to the bathhouse was slightly more northern than the building was, and so I ended up shifting the whole thing down, which was a little bit of a challenge here eventually. But until then, it's just working on the standard facade, trying to throw in the detail, trying to copy the other side, which I should have just used copy and paste here, but I decided to handcraft it for some unknown reason. There is a problem with using copy and paste, at least with these free floating objects, is that they're not tied to the grid. And so you can run into a little bit of a problem with things not lining up quite exactly right. And so here's our skip. We're going to be working on the interior here. You can see these backs of this wooden door making up a lot of the shingles on the roofing, and I really like the effect that gave in the long run. Adding some pillars, some molding to the courtyard here, you know, leaving that little bit of red to kind of break up all the white from all the stonework. And then also you'll notice the pool will have some walls. It'll also have some additional little sculptures. They'll be shooting out little bits of water, which is pretty cool. And of course the blue flooring that was there pretty much from the start of the episode. So the roof was a bit of a challenge just because of all the stuff you have to sink into it, and then also getting things to overlap and make it not look quite janky. There are some areas that aren't quite perfect, but you know, I think for what it is, it turned out all right. And also using this white molding along the seams, I think brings a really nice kind of color balance. And so we're working on the side buildings, trying to get them to look as, I guess, full stone as possible, and you know, adding in little details here and there. It's gonna be rather plain, except for the key kind of, I guess, main facade areas. But I think that's okay, because, you know, Roman structures, you know, not every Roman structure has to be this super grand kind of thing. There, you know, a lot of them were just pretty much boxes with some windows on it and some molding. And so it could look a little weird. And my cat, come here. There we go. My cat went into my lap. That jerk, interrupting my voiceover here. And so, you know, just more crown molding here, and eventually we'll get into some more, I guess, details on the pool itself, and then of course some on the outer wall. I finished up the whole outer structure pretty much off camera, so that you guys can get, I guess, this whole thing done in 20 minutes and get to see at least what all we're going for. The interior, there's no doors here, because in my mind you're going to be using the bathrooms to get into the structure itself. The pool area is kind of a you go into it and then you leave it. You don't go, it's not an access point to anywhere else in the structure. And so that's why there's no windows here, there's no doors. It's just this stucco wall with some molding, you know, just to keep it a nice, simple, clean look. And I hope you guys like that. If not, you know, I can always add detail into it later, but I kind of wanted a nice, simple, clean, kind of railing, lower railing, and then upper crown molding kind of going around it. Here, I decided that, you know, there wasn't quite enough story. And because we can't really do a pool yet for my citizens or anything, or not citizens, I'm not building a real town. Sometimes I think I am, but for the theme park goers, you know, I decided that, well, it might be a little bit boring. They can't go in here, so I decided to, maybe the moisture from all this water running has caused some things to become a little overgrown. Some moss, some vines, some additional things are growing throughout the area, kind of bring in a little bit of greenery mixed in with the stonework, which I'm fine with. You know, it's not so much to say that it's a ruin, but it's supposed to be kind of a unique structure, and if it's too plain and too boring to even look at from a distance, then I think it would have failed as some type of centerpiece, you know. So trying to use as much of the bushes and things to at least give some type of inkling as like vines growing up and over the roofing, and sinking some pillars, adding just some minor details here and there, trying to bring in some layers. I did add some additional side jets here, just to bring in a little bit more movement into the pool, which is pretty cool. You know, using the rotation lock with this is very handy, because you can just do one side, move it over. I was thinking about adding steam to try and just create kind of a, hey, this is hot water, but you know, deciding against it just because I think it would have looked a little too janky at that point. And here you can actually see some of the stonework on the outside, though after the speed build section, of course, I'll take you around a little bit slower so you can take in some of the finer details. Adding some more planters. This time a little bit more peep height rather than on the upper side of the building. That way the plants are layered from the left and right across from the street of each other. These will actually have some windows facing the road, because why not? You know, no one's going to be able to see into the bath through those windows, so I felt fine putting those there. All the lower area, though, has no real windows. They have these kind of square ones, but they have this tinted glass that I'm not really, you know, in my mind they're like almost like the, I don't want to say stained glass, but there's a glass block that's very common for people to build with, and it's kind of this opaque glass that people can't really see through. You can see shapes, and it lets some light in, but it really blocks any detailed viewing. Get off my lap, cat. You're shedding all over me. That is Not cool, and not what I need when I'm sweating in 85-degree weather. Oh my goodness, it's hot. It's hot. Alright, some more greenery going in to frame it up. I didn't complete all the buildings 100%, and that is because there's going to be some other elements attached to it, and so I didn't figure it'd be good to do all this crown molding and then end up covering it up. But doing some greenery up front kind of brings it up and finishes and kind of hugs the pathway really nice, and so I decided to do that at least. Here we're going to copy and paste to the other side because that's relatively quick. Same with the side pieces, which is very nice. I really need to do this more often for these larger builds. Try and use this copy and paste function as much as possible. And so this is going to pretty much wrap up the speed build section. We're going to go ahead and cut to some nice slow pans like always. That way you guys can kind of see some nice elements, and then we'll wrap it up with kind of the outro and standard procedures at that point. So hold on for a little bit. So there was some nice little panning shots, cinematic things, kind of cool stuff with the music for Planet Coaster, of course. And now let's go ahead and at least look at it a little bit slower. You know, I really like kind of the overgrown look to the sides here. You know, it kind of shows, in my opinion, how lush, maybe how fertile the land is surrounding the bathhouse, because there's so much maybe moisture here, and so I find with it being a little overgrown. We do have some details on the inside here. Of course, the main arch area is a lot of stone, and then once you get inside, you know, you can't see the stone as much, and they might have put up some plaster walls just to hide some of the elements, though we do have the crown molding, of course. This is a bathroom in the game, but in my mind, that is how you get into the side structures out here. And so once you're out here into the main courtyard with the bath pool thing, just listen to the water running. I can't wait until water's added into the game and we get some cool movement with that and some nice effects. And you know, I like the way it turned out. It's a very nice kind of I guess area. You know, it's very functional. I like the views of the little buildings that are sticking out. I think it adds a really nice layer to it. And then of course we can go ahead and look at some of the work on the outside here and how, you know, the walls came together on the details in trying to bring in as much, I guess you can say, fake stone as possible on these things. You know, this is a very large section of stone here, all wooden roofing and things like that. And yeah, I think it turned out fairly well. So go ahead, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. If there's anything you want me to change, fix, or go ahead and maybe suggest something to build next. I know, let's see, what do we have here? I need to build a spot for a flat ride. I don't know which one to use yet. And then a restaurant in this area. Again, really nice kind of restaurant area. I need to build a temple up here. And then back here, this is going to be the Library of Alexandria, which is going to be kind of an interior ride kind of coaster thing if we can get to it. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe. If you're new, go ahead and hit that like button so I know you guys are enjoying this kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys next time in some more Planet Coaster.